Hey, welcome back to another exciting, thrilling, spectacular, drama-filled episode of Don't Ruin This For Me, a podcast where we're definitely going to ruin it for you. Sorry.
Every single time.
Sorry. This week, we're getting our very first boys peeping into the locker room moment. That's sort of shocking because we've seen a lot of movies, but we're watching Fame. I'm gonna live forever. I'm gonna learn how to fly high. So fucking great.
So good.
It's a movie. It was released in 1980. It has a killer soundtrack, as we just gave you.
Yes.
I'm not going to be able to listen to this episode now that we've started it that way because I have a terrible singing voice. I can barely listen to my speaking voice.
Well, we've been singing a lot of songs lately. We've done Eye of the Tiger.
That was clutch. We had to.
Right. And then we did this one. I can't remember what was last week's. But anyways, it was funny.
We have been singing. But anyway, this movie has a killer soundtrack. It has a diverse cast.
Very.
It's got fucking New York.
Yes.
This is like, I love this New York. And absolutely, it's really just a montage.
Right.
There's no storylines, which is fine.
The 80s love montages. I mean, there's absolutely no plot to this movie.
100%.
Which is the thing that I did not remember about the film. I thought it had a plot line.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that you mentioned that because now I don't have to.
I was like, whoever wrote this saw a chorus line and was like, we're going to make a movie.
That is actually true.
100%.
That is a fact.
Yeah.
And I've loved this movie since I was a kid, probably at 8 or 9 when I first saw it. And I loved it so much that I saved up my own money and I bought the cassette tape, which was like gray with black writing, and it came in a little cassette holder, and I carried it with me everywhere I went from when I was 8 or 9 until I was in my early 20s, and I moved from California to Chicago.
You are a little artist.
And I played it in my little Sony Walkman, and it was a vibe. It was a real vibe.
She's got a heart of an artist, you guys. And that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm so excited about talking about art school, choosing a creative life, and really how easily dreams can lead you to taking your top off on camera.
And sucking your thumb.
Yeah.
Sucking your thumb.
It happens to the best of us.
When a pornographer says, suck your thumb, you better suck your thumb. I'm so excited.
Like a little schoolgirl.
Yes. This week's guest is Corrbette Pasko because not only... Wait, why did I write that?
I don't know.
You said I'm so psyched about this week's guest.
Well, anyways, she is a writer, an actor, producer, host, singer, professional swearer, comedian, impressive injury haver, ridiculous mom, and very loud advocate for justice. So loud. Because I have seen her. I've watched her on the TikToks where she loves to talk about being a Gen Xer. Corrbette, what's your handle on TikTok again?
It's really complicated. It's Corrbette. But it's 2 R's and 2 T's because my parents were insane. So it's CORRBETTE. That's me on every social.
And it's the best. Her TikTok is just basically like, oh, you think you have problems? You go and try to like get cigarettes for your mom when you're 7.
Oh,
I'm just saying. But it's also a really important part of what I do to not throw too much shade on younger gens. Like, oh, you should suffer too. We're not doing that. We're just letting you know, here's why we are the way we are. We're a mess.
Fame and buying cigarettes for our parents.
That's absolutely true.
Honestly, like, watch this movie. There you go. That's why.
This movie is really, I can't wait till we start talking about it. But until we do...
Well,
Adrian,
you left out the most important thing about Corrbette. She went to the Fame High School.
That's true, but I thought I mentioned it earlier. Maybe it was just in our chit chat.
It was.
It's important. Chitty chat.
It's important for our listeners to know that we have a real live expert.
I know. I'm so excited.
Yes.
True.
So, what have you been up to this week, Adrian?
Okay. The thing I'm really into right this very second, you guys, is Indian matchmaking. It's back on Netflix. By the time this episode comes out, it'll have been back for a while. But I just want to say that I really love Auntie Seema. As everyone knows, I am a woman in search of my true love. And Auntie Seema, she comes to people's houses. She meets women like me who are not... they're Indian, I'm white, but, she comes in and she's like, what do you want? These women list all these things. And Auntie Seema is like, bah, you want hair? Go fuck yourself. Like, I love her. She's just like, no, you can't have hair. You can't have height. You can't have anything that you think you want because you're wrong. And you know what? I think she's fucking right. I think she's right. I want to bring her into my life. It's great. Yeah.
That's great. I have still been on my SVU kick.
Oh my God, what are you doing? You're just like watching all the episodes in a row?
No, I don't watch them in a row. I watch them randomly at random times whenever I'm feeling like I can't.
But like on an
anything.
app?
Yeah.
Or you just turn to
Hulu.
TBS?
I just go plug and it comes on. I mean,
I want to know that there's an SVU app that you can just like.
Yeah, there should be.
Emotional support SVU app.
I will tell you, I keep being surprised at all the guest stars that show up. Very much like when we do these movies. Sometimes I'm like, whoa, there's Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
You know? And I think the storylines are just like, they get crazy. And then they always have like these big social justice moments of like, well, do you believe in abortion? And then they have to have a whole conversation that lasts with. And I just kind of think that one of the things that is joyous and perfect in the world is when Ice-T has an opinion on abortion.
Of course.
Or trans rights.
Of course.
Perfect.
You know he's on the right side of that shit.
The other thing I'm super, super obsessed with, let's talk, this whole season has been kind of chaotic between the two of us and just like trying to...
The season of SVU or our show?
Of our show.
SVU is always chaotic.
Incorrect. They are always about law and order.
Okay.
You're absolutely wrong.
It starts with chaos and then they create law and order.
That's correct.
And then
Thank you, Adrian.
Subsequently order.
Yes.
So this week, we've been recording and trying to do our best and just trying to get the show off the ground.
Yes.
Very humbly, we had made a decision that we would try to do a fundraiser.
We were so embarrassed.
Yes. So it took us like almost 7 months to decide to like actually push the button.
Literally, I think it was summer when we were like, maybe we should have a fundraiser. To be clear, it's the end of April, right this second.
And then at some point we were like, we're never going to do this fundraiser because we can't ask anybody for money or support in any way.
Why would anyone look at us?
Right. Why would anyone care about us?
Yes.
And so we just started recording and like we don't even have a production date of release.
We're just paying money. We're just paying it. We're like, we don't know what the fuck we're doing. Take our money. We have no money. Take it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we hit the...
we believe in this podcast so much.
Lift middle-aged women's voices.
Listen, I believe in
everywhere.
that.
Yes,
I fucking believe in that because I will tell you what. Yes, I tried to watch an episode of Girls recently, and I was like, why do like as a society we're like so obsessed with 20-year-olds? Like these people are fucking idiots. They don't know anything. We know all sorts of stuff, and we know enough to know that we don't know anything. So it's like we're way more interesting. Yeah,
I completely agree.
Yeah.
So this week, I think we have to do a big shout out and
I'm
completely obsessed with all the people who helped donate on our GoFundMe. We asked for $2,500.
Yes.
We ended up with close to $3,000.
No,
we
did
it.
Yes.
I was in Toronto. I wasn't checking the GoFundMe.
Yes. No, the reason I know this is because someone commented on your Facebook post and said, "I just took you to an even $3,000."
Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Right here.
Yes.
Right here.
Yeah, I saw it yesterday.
We found out that, wow, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Thank you, whoever that was, because I haven't checked my Facebook
it was somebody
either.
named Jimmy.
I love a Jimmy.
I don't know who it was. It was not someone
It's Jimmy $3,000.
Yeah.
Jimmy $3,000.
It's not somebody that we knew together. And I really do want to also shout out, like, listen, every single person who donated $1, like, we fucking love you. I looked at there and I was like, these are people I used to work with. Like, these are like my Delta Zetas. Like, these are, it's
friends
just like
I haven't seen in a long time or talked to in a minute.
It was amazing. But we do have to shout out basically our founding donor.
Goggles.
Goggles.
One of the only men on Team Tough Muff Bike Team.
Yeah, and you know what? You got to be an especially evolved man to be allowed on Team Tough Muff.
Yes. And I will also say...
There are only two, really.
Right? And there's not very many, as we've said before on this podcast, we don't like most straight white dudes.
That's unfortunate.
Goggles is definitely somebody who has... made that and he is a way to look forward and to be like, this is what white men should be.
He is our outlier. We fucking love him. He donated $500 to our fundraiser.
Yeah,
isn't that amazing?
It's so
Isn't that
cool.
amazing?
So cool.
So like basically he's a producer of this show now. We love you, Goggles. And you know what? We have some money. We're going to get some stickers.
Yes.
We are going to produce episodes. We are going to
have a soundtrack, a little theme song.
We're going to have a theme song. We're going to have a website. Like
yes, this is going to, we're upping
we're
our
going to have
game.
an LLC. We're going to have an LLC. Maybe. We were like, do we need a business checking account? Like, we're like not exact. Can we like have a business Venmo? Can they just put it there and then we'll send it out? We don't know. We don't fucking know. But you know what? We'll get like a how to run a business for dummies book.
Yep.
And we're there. So thank you.
Yes, I'm thrilled.
We're shocked.
And we're I mean, honestly, one thing that Adrian and I think Corrbette might relate to this at some point because she's a Gen Xer too, but like we always feel like nobody paid attention to us as kids.
Yeah.
And that like we couldn't really dream. Like you weren't allowed to necessarily have full dreams because your parents thought you were an idiot just to think like your creative life would take you anywhere.
Listen, the fact that it was like 55 people donated to this campaign,
Amazing.
I was like, we have 55 listeners. Like,
Yeah, you do, right?
What? So, you know
We are
what?
stunned.
Let's give the people what they came for.
Yes. And, you know, Adrian's already said it, but thank you. We are fucking thrilled.
We're so excited.
All right, let's get this show going. What do you think about that?
We're going
All
to
right.
talk about creative dreams, and fundraising is part of creative dreams. And here we are. We're in New York City.
Yes.
We're talking about fame. And because this movie is wild, it's essentially a montage. It really is. It's just like there's just like, you know, there's performance music pieces in the middle, at the end. We love it. So we're just going to talk about like the characters and set the stage for our recap, because it's way too montagey to be like this happened.
there's too
you
there's
can't
too much
do it.
happening.
No.
Yeah.
There's no scaffold.
And I would also like to say that the school itself is its own character, right?
Yes.
Like, it's always so when we're describing
main
the
character.
right.
Whose glass was shattered.
Yes. Okay, I just want to ask you guys
Enraged.
real quick before we recap. Do you like this movie?
Corrbette,
do.
I'll let you answer.
I do.
You do.
I had to reconfirm that when I watched it on Saturday. I'm like, okay, remember, you were very young and you've lived a long life since then. This could be real corny. And I have to say, yeah, it is. But you know what? I love it. I'm here for
Yes.
all of its ridiculousness. You're like, are
Yeah.
you fucking serious? They are fucking serious.
Yes.
And I'm here for it. I love it. I love
Elizabeth?
I don't love it.
She texted me this. Expound, please.
I was like, this is a long movie that never really goes anywhere. But in writing our recap, I was like, you know, maybe it does go somewhere.
Corrbette,
Maybe the place it goes is the friends we made along the way.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
I wonder if Corrbette and I are both a similar form of dreamer, because I
Ooh.
loved this fucking movie. I mean,
Even in the rewatch, I loved it as a kid. I loved it.
in
as
a
a kid.
so I want
Clearly.
to clarify. I did take a whole 5 milligram edible.
Oh, well, that explains.
Which is a lot for me. It's a lot
All right.
for me. And I had some popcorn and I had some M&Ms and I like chilled out and I was like, man, fucking art. Yes. Yes.
Yep.
People with dreams. Yes. You're trying. Yes. Look at Leroy. Yes. Like, yeah. So, so I watched the first like 3/4 in that state, and then I finished the end like on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And I was not high. And I was kind of like, why is Ralph crying? Why are we at the Rocky Horror? And then I was just like, I was less
I don't know.
invested. So that's my hot tip is like, if you are a dreamer, if you're a creative, you know, get in your creative space when you watch this movie.
I think the second half is torture.
I'm still not sure why Ralph was crying. I had to read your recap.
I still don't know. That's the thing. When I say I love this movie, I also love the disaster trash that it also is. And I'm like,
Yes.
what are you doing? You know what? Never mind. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's happening. It doesn't matter why. I have so many questions, but it's okay. And I actually watched this movie not high, which is a rarity. Like of all the movies that I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna chill on a Saturday and just watch this sober. So I think I went in like, let's go to this dumpster fire, and I think some of that is personal bias from the dumpster fire at the actual school, but we'll get into that.
I can't wait to talk about it.
I can't wait.
So let's go over some of the characters. We're going to go over like the real main ones, because there's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids.
Well, it opens, we're at auditions, how to get in. Everybody wants to get into this high school. So we're going to be in auditions, and this is where we're going to meet the characters, and the auditions go on for a long time.
Right. So basically, the way that we go down the characters, we'll just do basically from their freshman year until they're singing Body Electric.
Sing the Body Electric.
Yes, we're just going to give you the whole 4 years, because
Let's do it.
It is very abrupt like that too.
I noticed
like there's the senior year is just all of a sudden just ended.
Passage of time is a blur.
I noticed though on your recap, you did start with the white girl, the most boring character, which I was fascinated about.
Well,
obviously, I would have started with Leroy.
I mean,
Leroy is definitely the best character, but
Yeah.
the reason I started with Doris is because I think she opens the doors to the other characters.
Oh,
that
God. Let's hear
that
it.
are unfolding.
Let's hear it.
So
are you sure it's not because she was in Greece too? Because that's why.
Was she in Greece too?
Yes, she was. Let's do it for our country. She was. I can't remember her name. I had to look her up. First of all, her last name is Tifi, and that's a thing. And I was like, why is she so familiar? This earnestness about her is so fucking familiar. And I looked it up. I'm like, oh my god, she dated Goose. That's who she is.
I had the same feeling. I was like, I knew who she is, and then I went out. So Doris, she comes in as a freshman. She's a drama student. She gets accepted
She's
to
got
the program.
like fucking pigtails on. They're
Yes.
like, you don't have to sing. She's like, I will sing. It's like a very dramatic, weird,
Overbearing mother.
Yeah, I was like, she's Jewish. I was like, are we supposed to think she's good at this? Are we not? I was confused.
Well,
but you know what? That is what art school is, and people judging you. You don't know. Like,
we spent 4 years with her, and nothing really ever really that extremely interesting in one way or the other happens for her, right? Like,
she goes to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And
She gets. She's a freshman in high school. She's a drama student. She meets this guy named Montgomery. After she gets very uncomfortable in the lunchroom when Irene Cara sings "Hot Lunch."
Right.
Yes,
It was
there's
too
a
wild
musical
for her
set
in there.
piece.
Yeah.
There's a musical set piece, and I was like, oh my God.
They're dancing. The people are going nuts. She sneaks out. Doris sneaks
Fucking
out, and she
loved
sees
it.
this cute little redhead guy who's like sitting in the stairs all alone, and that's Montgomery. So they become best friends.
Yeah.
And then the two of them are drama kids, and they like live together, like not live together, but they're best friends throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then Montgomery sells drugs to a guy named Ralph, and then she ends up.
She wrote that in here, sells drugs. She has totally like erased the white collar crime of this all. Montgomery is like going to a psychiatrist, which is like
also
very
yes,
New York.
Yes.
And he's getting pills from the psychiatrist that he's selling. It's not like he's like a cocaine dealer.
I like that you're like there's different types of drug selling.
I'm just saying, if people don't know who Montgomery
Still,
is,
well, that's what we're getting
it's
to.
Important. And you also left out that his mother is an actress and she's never around.
Because I haven't started talking about
No,
Montgomery.
but when you wrote it down.
Moving forward in the storyline about Doris. Doris starts banging Ralph.
Yeah.
And then
Ralph Garcia.
Yes. And then she decides in her
Garcia.
sophomore year that she is going to change her name to Dominique. And then she and Ralph go out
DuPont or something?
Yeah, it's super weird.
It's an actress name.
Yeah, well, her whole
Sure
thing
it
is
is.
like, I'm concerned about my Jewish heritage, blah, blah, blah. And then she ends up dating Ralph, and then her and Ralph go to Rocky Horror Picture Show. Oh, when she's a freshman, she also likes this guy named Mike. She has a big crush on a senior who's going off to be a star.
Yeah, he's going to Hollywood.
Yeah. So her junior year,
He's got
Going to
an
be in a
agent.
pilot. He's going to be in a pilot.
William Morris Agency has a lot of
Yes,
plans
William
for me.
Morris. Yes.
and she ends up seeing Rocky Horror Picture Show, and she and Montgomery and Ralph are having like breakfast or lunch or whatever. And she's like, I got high during Rocky Horror Picture Show, and I can be whoever I want.
I love that for her.
And then Mike shows up, and
love
she's
for you.
like, oh, Mike.
He's a
remember
waiter.
Me?
He's a waiter.
He's like, yes, my career's in the fucking shitter.
Yeah. He's like, wait, being an actor sucks.
And then, in her relationship with Ralph, she ends up, Ralph ends up, which we'll talk about, is like he becomes a stand-up comic. He goes down the shitter, and Doris and him have a big fight. They break up, or they don't. We don't really actually know.
not sure.
They have the fight, and then they graduate high school.
I mean, that's fine. It's a montage.
it's fine.
Of course.
It's a
You know,
snapshot.
and his friendship with Montgomery remains intact. you know,
Yes.
after he insulted Montgomery, and then Montgomery is still able to cuddle with him as a friend.
Yeah.
You know,
That was a
while he's
sweet little
shirtless.
scene.
Montgomery's big-hearted.
Yeah. Well, should we talk
He
about
really
Ralph?
is.
Well, let's talk about Montgomery, and then we'll talk
Yeah, I
about
think we have
Ralph.
to talk about
He keeps
Montgomery
coming
first.
up.
Yeah, it's no problem.
Montgomery's gay. His mom's an actress. He is seeing an analyst. He gets pills.
Who is also his guardian.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
his guardian
Well,
is his
yes.
analyst.
Yes, because his mother is gone. He's also in love with his analyst. Montgomery's very, you know, he's so sweet and nice and damaged, and I want to mother him.
I think
He is a New Yorker through and through.
Yes.
He's a neurotic New Yorker.
Yes.
100%.
Yes, they give him very like Woody Allen vibes.
Yes,
Do you think
they
so?
do.
I don't feel like he's like so like squirrely.
Well,
and I
he's
hate
not
Woody
that
Allen, so
squirrely.
it's hard for me to be like.
No, I do hate Woody Allen. No,
But the movie opens with Montgomery giving like a monologue that feels very like Woody Allen-ish to me.
Yeah, very New York
Yeah.
art school. I would also
Which-
say, go ahead.
No, that's right. Again, I have a true anecdote from that, but we'll come back.
I would also say that the thing that's interesting about Montgomery's story is he's just basically the gay guy throughout the whole movie. There's like no real like development of that or
But you know what? It's
storyline.
1980, and I will say that's the year I was born, so it's 43 years ago. And I will say one thing I loved about this movie is like the diversity. The
Oh my God, yes.
you know, like the city, like today, if you made this movie in the same way, I feel like it would, the wokeness of it would be so much more performative. Like this movie feels authentic to me. Like they are like trying to show who these kids are that go to this school. And that the facts are there are gay kids and there are Puerto Rican kids and there's black kids. You know what I mean? Like it feels real. And for like 1980, you know, granted, would we like Montgomery to have more than just being the gay guy sidekick? Yes, but I still think it's fucking great that it's happening.
He delivers the hardest line, though, I think,
Tell
out of the whole
us.
thing, which is the one
What
that
is
where
it?
he when he comes out and talks about it, he's like, "Well, I'm pretty adjusted, you know, for being gay."
Yeah.
And then he's like, "And never being happy isn't the same thing as being unhappy, is it?" And I,
Oh, yeah.
It hits ya.
That was a painful line, right?
I was like, oh, Jesus, Montgomery. Okay. Wow, you are adjusted. You're doing terribly, but okay with it. So
His analyst
You'll be all
helped
right.
him there.
Yeah.
he really did.
And then we have
Yeah.
Ralph. Ralph is the big mouth kid
little
who goes
firecracker.
he's like the obnoxious personality.
Yeah.
And then
He was obsessed with Freddie Prinze.
Freddie
Like,
Prinze.
obsessed.
Yes.
What?
Yes.
Why? And all of us are like, you mean the dad to the guy who played Fred in the Scooby-Doo movie?
Exactly.
Like,
The whole time I'm just picturing Freddie Prinze Jr., even though
Yep.
I know there's a senior, but I'm like, you're talking about Sarah Michelle Gellar's husband?
well, he's
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
he's so obsessed that he there's a moment in his career there in the high school where he has to give a monologue, and his monologue is about pain and suffering and like how it's like how to be vulnerable because he's such a hard ass. And then he tells a story about Freddie Prinze having committed suicide, and he gets like very cryy, and then the teacher like looks at him in this like beautiful sunlit room with wooden chairs, and he says,
Right.
"Yes, Ralph, but how did that affect you?"
Yeah. Yeah. I fucking loved it.
I was like, and we never got an answer. Actually, we never because I was like, why is this? To your point, anyways. So then Ralph goes on, and he becomes a he's obviously dating Doris at this point, and while he's
a
at rehearsal,
15-year-old stand-up comic.
Right? Who is known by Richard Belzer. Like, I
Yes,
literally,
lunch.
in my notes, just wrote, Belzer! Like, I got real excited. I was like, what?
Munch
What are
looks
you doing here?
And Munch looks so good. He's got a full head of hair, and
know.
he looks young. And he's so. Anyways, there's a whole scene with him and the comedy world, and he's obviously like just trying. He was like so special, and then he gets into this fight with Doris because his lifestyle as a comic, as we all know, because we know lots of male comics, unfortunately,
Avoid them.
right?
Run.
They they're just nothing but trouble.
Yes.
He's in a blazer with no shirt on at the show.
Right?
Well, that's
looking
hot.
coked out and angry. Like, just
More comics should
Every-
do that.
Yeah, and then he bombs.
let's bring that back.
Yeah.
Yes. He bombs, and that's when Montgomery comes in and cheers him up by telling him, we're the pie in the face people.
Right. But also, they just kind of gleaned over his whole home life thing.
Yes.
Where first he goes over some mounds of rubble to tell
So much rubble.
That he got it. That right? We all just climb over mountains of bricks.
Yes,
to
it
tell
was
our
very
families.
New York. Like they knocked down a building and they just left it all there.
It was 80s New York, which is a different time.
It was like West Side Story, but in the 80s. Yeah.
And also, my 5-year-old sister, is that sister, niece? Not sure.
Sister.
Right, they never explain that.
No, was attacked by a junkie when he was rehearsing somewhere else.
Yes.
And then he yelled at the priest about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the last we saw of that child. No idea how she is. Just
hope she made it.
They're all speaking in Spanish, and then obviously about the whole situation and what happened. And his mom is there crying with her prayer beads, and he's like, "Why did you take her to a church and not a hospital?" And then he graduates and sings The Body Electric.
Listen, it's a fucking montage.
This is the end of everyone's story. They graduate and then he sings The Body Electric.
Yeah, that's exactly true.
Sometimes art is about asking questions, not providing answers.
Not a single one. Not one.
Let's talk about our boy Leroy. Corrbette, do you want to take this one?
Okay, so the thing is, first of all, I love that Leroy upstaged his partner.
Yes, the best.
The best, that poor woman. But also, I conflated the movie with the series for a second there because that's the only time we see Debbie Allen.
Yes.
Is in the auditions. And then she's gone I'm like, there's Debbie Allen commenting on the gyrations of a teenager and saying wicked. And I'm like, great.
It was wicked. She wasn't wrong.
It was.
Yeah,
no, she was not.
Wrong.
But
and then she's inappropriate. Was it though? But then she's gone forever. And you're like, oh, well, all right. So Leroy is this incredible dancer who is breaking the norms, but also shows us no matter how diverse this school is and looks like New York City circa 1980, he's the one facing racism from his English teacher, right?
That's correct.
Who is Steve Brady's mom from Sex and the City?
Oh my God, yes.
Yes.
I was like,
Miss Sherwood.
Yeah. She has a big part. And I'm like, what is Steve Brady's mom doing here yelling at Leroy? Throwing copies of Othello at him.
Oh, yeah, read this. He's black. What?
Yeah.
Right. Also calls his AVE, we speak English in this class. And also referring to the boombox stereo as the ghetto blaster.
Yeah.
Which we all did at the time, but I was still like, ugh. So Leroy just has like this existence where apparently he rides around with some cat collars that he eventually dumps trash on.
That was great.
Because he's evolved, right? Yeah. And he has his girlfriend Coco, who's kind of a girlfriend, but he just cheats on her without any consequence or remorse there.
He's hot as hell. It's not his fault. He's in tiny, teeny, tiny shorts. He has like no shirt on. He has these ripped up abs. He can dance like nobody's business. Like nobody.
He's going to join Alvin Ailey.
Nobody can hold that man down.
No, not even Irene Cara cannot.
Not even dyslexia.
Right. No, not even. Right. He cannot read, and he's going to try by reading the Maytag washing machine repair manual.
Yeah. In some rubble.
In rubble also.
In rubble, where he also takes comfort.
I think that's metaphorical.
I think so.
Yeah.
But then when the teacher's husband is in the hospital, I just like that it's the hospital, and he just finds the one hospital in New York City. Found her. Got it. And I'm here to yell at her about how hard she's been on me. And then they have a talk, and then he graduates and sings The Body Electric. Sorry, dances to The Body Electric. He's not in the chorus part.
Well, I'm glad you clarified this thing with him and Coco, because I wasn't really sure what the vibe was. Because, he ends up cheating on her with Hillary, and Hillary is a ballet dancer that he gets pregnant. And then there's this one random
she's
scene.
The rich. You're leaving out.
She's
rich.
A rich
she's
white
blonde.
Girl. Right.
Also, her stepmom is another cameo.
Holland Taylor.
Yes.
Love Holland Taylor.
Yes,
she was married to Sarah Paulson, right?
Yeah, real life lesbians.
Oh, amazing. And has no lines. She's just there as a figure that we know of. Anyway, so yes.
Amazing. So Hillary, the ballet dancer that he cheats on Coco with, she's like just randomly you get the scene where she's just crying and talking to herself, and she's like, I could have been at this ballet company, and I could be in this ballet company, and this company, and this is what I want for my life, and then
I'm gonna dance all of these roles before I'm 21. I'm so good.
Then we pan back, and the nurse says, "When do you want to schedule your abortion?"
No, she says cash or credit. It's
better.
Less than that. How are we paying today?
Loved it.
Yes, so good.
Because that chick's kind of a twat. So, we love this moment where she's been taken down.
Yes, I do.
Notches.
I do.
Yeah,
but I also was like, this
and
is
she fucks
so
Leroy
weird.
after he sees her dance. I love this fucking movie. I'm such a
in the boys' locker room. In the boys' locker
in
room.
the boys' locker room. And all I could think is, here's the thing about dancers, and they're beautiful and things that my body could never do, even when I took dance. You know that she smells terrible.
Yeah. She don't care.
She is glistening with sweat and wearing full tights, and they even mention stinky tights at the top of the movie.
Yeah, crotch rot.
Yep, and they're going in on it in the boys' locker room. They don't care.
I love that.
Then we come to probably our last couple of people. We have Bruno and Coco.
Love Bruno. His dad's a fucking taxi driver.
Yep.
Bruno is starting a new wave of music. He's into amps. He's into synthesizers. He's into
That's
like,
right.
dun, 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 dun. And his whole story is that he's going to fight with the aging music teacher who's
Mr.
into like
Swarovski.
fucking Beethoven and shit.
Swarovski.
And he like cuts out the power. He's the composer of the song Fame, through which his father blasts on the top of his cab, shutting down an entire street in New York as the students swarm out of the high school to dance on top of cars to Fame. Yes, you don't
what
love
everyone
this
has
movie.
No, I'm just gonna say, like, here's the thing that I thought was so funny about that scene is that we never get any idea that Bruno wrote the song until he's like that, right? So all of a sudden his dad just pulls up to the high school and plays the music, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, that's my song!"
Right.
And then Irene Cara comes running down, and she's like, "I'm singing," and I thought, like, so far as the storytelling of that was like very difficult for me to wrap my. I was just like, he's like,
get into the magic.
No, I did not.
You're like
They're
trying
dancing
to
on
put
cars.
logic into the fact. The whole point is that these are theater kids, and at any
get it.
moment we could burst into song and dance.
And his dad's in the middle of a fist fight with some guy trying to ruin his equipment, and it still pans out to a giant bacchanalian celebration.
It's
like,
wonderful.
yep,
yes,
Dad's beating some guy up, but it's fine.
Art.
Right. And the two of them, Bruno and Coco, have been
Iconic.
like together ever since like the beginning of it. Bruno has a big crush on her.
Yeah.
She sings a song called Out Here on My Own, which I have been blaring every single moment of every single day which is only 2 days ago when I watched this movie.
Every single moment in the last
Every
48
single
hours.
moment for like 48 hours I've been listening to the song. It's been
Hardcore.
God, I just remember actually this is a moment for sad little Elizabeth.
Okay.
I remember when I was like really little, like sitting in my room with the lights out and just playing that song over and over again because I was out there on my own, Adrienne.
Oh my God. It would have been like, our daughter has a cry for help playing over and over again in her room. Should we?
Yes.
But no one was there to hear it.
That's right. Gen Xer? No, your parents weren't. They didn't. Or they were having a party. Please
Because
don't interrupt.
Corrbette, you are actually a thoughtful parent.
No one else noticed.
Yes.
No, they
then
did not.
We get to the scene that is the one that I think everyone always remembers next to the
Yes.
famed dancing
Yes.
scene, which is Irene Cara, or Coco, is sitting in a diner. She meets some dude who claims that he is a film director from the south of France.
Yeah.
And
He's seen her
But
work.
also, he's seen her work
He's seen
in
her
a chorus line.
I don't even know.
And he says something about a chorus line, but I think
Yeah.
he means an actual chorus line. Because
Yeah.
he's like, in that sultry red dress number, I'm like, that isn't a thing in a
No.
chorus line. What are you talking about?
No.
He's like, and you're the best one in there. I'm like, what? Did she play Cassie? What are you talking about? She's not.
Well, she's the one who most clearly wants to be a star.
Yes,
Like
right,
the
and
whole
believes in
time
herself.
she's
Yes.
like trying to figure out how she's going to be a star.
So she then he then offers her a screen test and gives her an address. She shows up in this shady ass apartment in the middle of New York City, goes in, he's like bonjour.
Right. He's
The
just a
worst
total
French accent
sleaze.
possible.
Yeah.
He's
Absolutely.
just being such a dork.
Yeah.
And
She's like, where's the crew? Aw.
And he sets up the camera with the lights, and there's like a backdrop, and she's in this cute little blue printed dress.
Not for long,
right?
No, she's only in half of it.
And it was like a matter of 30 seconds when he's like, take off your top. And so she's like, I can't. And he's like, take off your top.
You can do it. It's great.
He's like, the camera loves you, baby.
It's really sad.
Yes, and she takes
It's so sad. I hate it so much.
Yeah. I know. She takes off her top, and just for the audience, it's even creepier because this whole scene is being played out while you watch a black and white television.
That you're watching him film it.
Yes. So it's like even more uncomfortable because now you're seeing what the product is.
Yeah.
And she takes off her top and she's crying. And this is the part, I remember the scene so much, and it has always stayed with me. I think about it all the time, actually. It's just a weird, they're like a random thought.
You hate this movie.
Right? You just have like these random thoughts, and you're like, oh, there's Irene Cura's tits.
While she's crying.
Right. And so she's crying. She's taking off her top. And I did not catch this until this watch, which was where he goes, just suck your thumb.
Yeah, that's
put your thumb in your mouth and just suck it like your little baby.
It's so creepy.
And then
it's so bad.
The next thing you know, she's singing The Body Electric.
I know, we didn't see her again. We don't know. Was it Leroy? Was it Bruno? Who did you wind up with? Are you okay? No. And he's like, first he also tells her while she's sobbing to arch her back a little bit.
He does.
As she's clearly folding into herself and sobbing. Yep. Yeah. And then suck your thumb like a schoolgirl. Now, I don't know if it was 1980, but sometime around there, and this is resurfaced, and I really wish it would go back to the depths of hell from whence it came, was that Love's Baby Soft ads.
Oh, I remember that.
Mm-hmm. There's the print ads, and those are horrifically creepy by themselves.
Yeah.
But there is a television commercial that I think was this guy, because it wasn't really, but it may as well. It is, the camera is zooming in with all this Vaseline lens on this made up woman who's looking at the camera like a little girl and sucking a lollipop. The voiceover is like close and creepy. And he's like, it's like, I swear to God, this is a line from the commercial. It's like a baby grew up to be very sexy.
No.
Yes.
No.
So no wonder this guy was like, I can get away with this. I can absolutely.
Oh my God.
It is vomit inducing, and it was real.
While we're on the subject of like inappropriate things, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit and just say like why don't we talk about some of the inappropriate and weird things that happened in this movie?
I think we've recapped enough.
Yeah,
let's move on.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So definitely like we this is Adrian and I have been waiting for the moment that we got like a peeping boy into a locker moment. This is our first one. I'm so proud of us because our selection has been overall pretty solid.
It's shocking movie. We've watched John Hughes. What's happening? Yeah.
Oh yeah. John Hughes is not. We don't do so much okay. But here's the thing with the random peephole scene that I want to point out, because we just talked about Irene Cara.
Yeah.
The one teenage actor whose breasts we see, as the dudes are like, oh my God, she's not a character. No. So she is basically the Irene Cara of us.
Yes.
We're the sleazy guys.
Yes. And her tits
watching this
are amazing. I mean,
she
has fully been chosen just to turn around and show her tits to the camera, to your point, because I was like, this girl is so skinny, and look at these huge boobs.
Right? How is she not falling over? But like, we're the creepy guy.
Yes,
because we don't see her ever again.
Never.
I'm like, oh man, that was a Porky's moment that we all just had.
100%.
I didn't think about it that way, but now that you said that, I feel very dirty.
Yeah.
I feel very dirty inside. I also thought like, for the film being so diverse, but like definitely racist in some ways, right?
Oh yeah.
Because like there was like the whole scene at the first audition where the white chick like looks at the brown girl and she pulls at her nose ring, and she's like, "Does that hurt or is it ethnic?"
That was the best ignorant question I've ever heard in my life. I thought that was amazing. I was like, what?
to me, I was like, no, it hurts because it is ethnic, and you're making it weird.
I kind of hope that they just phrase it like that so we could all hear how stupid that question was.
Right.
I'm hopeful they were aware of that. But
I think so. I mean, I would say, like, honestly, for 1980, this movie could have been 7,000 times more racist and more awful than it was. To me, I hate saying this as the white person in the room, so feel free to be like, you are incorrect. I mean, yes, there are definitely racist moments, the ghetto blaster, and, for sure. But, like, overall, I feel that the creators were earnestly trying to tell the story of a diverse group of people.
Yeah. Do you think
she's looking at me very skeptically?
Well, no, I'm
just like, I don't think so.
Do you not think so, Corrbette?
No. I do. There were some moments that I was like, that's super cringe.
Yeah.
And it had its sizest moments too, right?
Yeah.
Like, what was the thing at the beginning? Like, you can't help your glands. I'm sorry, I'm just so nervous.
Yeah.
Or the it's the bigger kid who's trying to see into the peephole who breaks the whole thing, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
We have fatty fall down joke. I'm like, are we really? We're doing that? Okay.
I think ballet culture is still the same, though. I don't think you're allowed to have glands in ballet culture.
You're not. You're absolutely not.
I also though wonder if some of the inappropriate conversations were also to be some kind of like relatable inner city moment.
Yeah,
like the time when she's throwing the book of Othello, she's like throws the book at Leroy, and she's like, "Read this book. He's black," which I think is absolutely not acceptable today. I don't think you can throw books at kids, and you can't be like that.
Well, she didn't throw it at him to hit him. No. She tossed it at him.
But I would also,
Steve Brady's mom.
What are your both, but for both of you, what do you think about when you're thinking about that? Like, is that a way to really like? That's not a way to be a teachable moment, right?
No, she's terrible at it. She's shaming him in front of everyone. She's absolutely the worst at motivation. Yes, it was.
I mean, that's what I want to say about it. My parents were teachers, so I grew up at home with people just like this. I went to schools that were just like this, and that's how it was. If you couldn't read well, people were throwing books at you and being dicks. Nobody was like, let me take the time to figure out why you are having struggles and, like, let me help you. That wasn't the fucking vibe. Like, so to me, like, their interaction didn't feel like false. I was like, this is the 80s and 90s.
She wasn't presented as a hero here, right? Like, it looked like a dick move when she did it.
Yeah.
Because we're all sympathizing for Leroy. We all like Leroy better. And I'm like, well, I mean, I guess they would do that. That looks right. Like,
she also takes his knife at the very beginning. Yes. We left this part out, which is pretty hilarious. He rolls in with his friend to be in this audition, but he's just supposed to be her dancing partner, and she's supposed to shine. And when they're checking in, the chick is like, Steve Brady's mom, she's like, you have to give me your knife. You have to check the knife. And he's like, what, you gonna hold it? She's like, give me the knife. So they have like this whole relationship throughout. But you're right. It is about like reflecting two different cultures smashing together.
He also then showed his whole coat full of knives.
He had more knives after he checked the one that was in his like it was in his waistband.
Yeah, he opens it up like those Sesame Street letter guys.
Yes.
Yeah.
You want to buy an egg?
Yeah. Somebody buying watches in coats.
And it's just knives.
Knives.
How are you dancing with it? No wonder you had to get naked. You had very heavy artillery on you. You can't possibly.
The other moment that I thought was interesting was that when the Lisa, we didn't talk much about Lisa, but Lisa basically is a gal who gets into the dance program, and then she's almost immediately kicked out because she doesn't sweat hard enough.
She's not a good enough dancer. She doesn't put enough effort in.
Yes, and
she
she'll
likes
never
to chat,
and she'll never be the best. And she gets thrown out. And it's interesting because, like, I think one of the things, and Corrbette, you could probably talk about this a little bit so far as like, who gets to decide who's the best and what's the best, right? Like, I think that's an interesting thing about the whole form of the school is, I think today we celebrate a lot about like having your individual voice and your difference between, not having the same ballet body. But, at this time it's like everyone has to be exactly in order, exactly the same way. And was that your experience at the school also? And tell us a little bit about how you got into it.
No, it was not exactly that. The brash, harsh truths, though, some of those were real. that they would sit there and tell you about. So I went to the Chicago Academy for the Arts for my junior and senior year. So I transferred from Proviso West High School to the Chicago Academy for the Arts, which, if you're not from anywhere near the Chicagoland area, those two could not be more different. Like the culture shock was like, what? And what hit me as I was watching this movie was that I started there 10 years after Fame was made. I am so very old. I speak to you now from a pile of dust on which my bones are. I was like, holy crap. And what I kept, this is such an obvious thing to say, but I'm watching this very analog life. Okay. Like how old the building is, how large and expansive in these cramped little rooms, right? Like the building's huge, but the rooms are just shoved in there. And I loved this because we were it still is in an old Catholic boys' school. So it's at Chicago and Carpenter, and it's next to a church. The church owns that building. And actually, they came to that building later. In 1980, they had opened up somewhere in Adams. And the year I got there is the year they got that building, which they got from a grant from Oprah.
Oh.
Yes, my first field trip was an NEA rally. After that, we went to surprise Oprah at her studio to sing her an original song to say thank you.
You know, I'm loving this.
I know you love Oprah.
It was, I got to walk arm in arm out with Oprah, and I got to talk to her for a minute, and it was pretty. And the thing that I remember most about that experience is they instilled in us, no one belts out any riffing or solos. Okay, we're all there together as one unit. No one does. Of course, people did. Of course, they did.
Oprah,
right? Like
Oprah.
I do still actually remember a little bit of the song, but it was, so when I'm watching this hot lunch thing, two things come up. One, no one is singing over Irene Cara. No one is trying to take stage first. It's just mostly the dancers and musicians. I'm like, never. That would never happen. A building full of artists. No fucking way. Also, this was a public school, and there is now Shy Arts, which is a public school that I believe is free. The Academy was not. I went on scholarship and actually, fun fact, did not get my diploma because I still owed money. And I got it over a decade later from the woman who ran the office, who was there from day one. When I came back to teach and direct, she's like, I have something for you, and hands me my diploma. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, just take it. So like, and I had to talk to the financial director, who's telling me that she has to tell the parents whose kids won't be graduating because they're behind on payments. I'm like, yeah, that is a hard talk. All right, well, I gotta, but like, we didn't have a lunch. We had a lunch room. We didn't have hot lunch. We didn't have any lunch. It was an empty room. I think they made it into a computer lab now, but it was an empty room with a couple of couches and a microwave. And there was a vending machine, the kind that like you slid open and you could like grab a burger to microwave. Like we could go off campus because we had no food facilities at all. So there would be no hot lunch song.
You had to live off your dreams.
You had to live off your dreams and microwave dinners.
Exactly.
That's it.
That's what artists do.
And there was a lot of hand jobs that went on in that room. There was so much sex in the practice rooms. I can't emphasize that enough. Like that's,
so
I mean, I was like, you guys, like I like people were popping in and out naked as I went into like practice something. I'm like, oh, hey, okay, sorry, my bad. Y'all just, okay. So my mom set up the audition. What's funny is I actually do have I wrote a pilot with my writing partner, Sarah Savini, called Class of 92, about my experience at that school. Because even though in 1980 and 1990, a decade apart, but the wild nature of what you're letting kids get away with still very much existed when I went there. Kids were smoking with teachers. Again, sex in the practice rooms. I remember I was on student council and we're trying to tell them, throw away your trash or whatever. And while we're talking, there is a kid visibly getting a hand job from his girlfriend under a coat in the back of the thing. And we're like, do you mind? Okay. That same kid was tripping in class. He was an art major. So that's the one difference, is we had art at the time. We had visual art as well. Now they have a gajillion majors.
I'm really hoping this ends with, and that was Brad Pitt.
that would, okay, hold on. I don't have that, but I do have, yeah. So this kid, and I knew this because they punished him, quote unquote, by putting him in the hallway, but the hallway was the art gallery. So I come out and I just see him just swaying in a chair. I'm like, Josh, how you doing? Good. All right. And I just keep going up to the top floor where the theater was, which we built also. There was no theater. So they used child labor for us to drag the lockers out. I mean, like knock down walls with a sledgehammer.
We don't call that child labor. We call that, putting the work in.
I was going to say,
that's
right.
Yeah. You were putting the work in.
Yes, for your dreams. Yes. The fuck?
It was.
Sometimes you have to take your top off. Right? Sometimes you have to move the fucking lockers.
Sometimes you suck your thumb. Sometimes you knock down a wall. It depends on the day. I mean, we did play a lot of like corporate industrial things to make money for the school too. Like they pimped us out left and right. And we also they would set us up with auditions and stuff. So my mom set me up with an audition for this. Out of fucking nowhere. She just calls me and she's like, I found this school. We have $0 and 0 cents. Like the landlord is literally coming up to our apartment building because he lives downstairs. Like, where's the rent with the staying with the first floor neighbors when our lights, electricity, phone is all shut off, right? But somehow I'm going to this school. Turns out my mom's boyfriend at the time paid a good amount of that. And I had no idea. But I auditioned with voice, clarinet, and acting, and I was accepted into both departments. And they're like, you have to choose. So basically, choose your path for the rest of your life.
Right, music versus drama?
Now. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So all this crossover that they were doing in Fame, we did not do that. We had 1 week of crossover where you could go and take classes somewhere else. But your major was your major. And you auditioned for a studio when you were in acting as well. And one kid absolutely did do a Woody Allen monologue and looked like the most neurotic 45-year-old. And he was a freshman in high school, and I'm still very good friends with him. He was amazing. And we also did theater outside. There were some people that did Marat Sade in the parking lot, like they were doing, like Doris and...
I love that.
Right? Like when they were outside, I was like, the chain link dance. We totally did that. Absolutely. We studied offending the audience. It was like you could just leave for an audition. I went to the bathroom and some girls were getting ready. I'm like, what you doing? CBS. What for? Magic Door. What do they need? 16 bars. Can I come? Sure. And you just left. You were just excused to go to these auditions. So
my kid, my youngest one, it ended up at Shy Arts, the public school that ended up being developed. And when they went there, I remember walking through the halls, and I remember that it seemed very cool because all the kids were like actually very much like Fame. Like ballerinas were like hanging out. Somebody was playing a cello. It was just kind of like wild and chaotic in that way. But once the bell rang, they were just, everyone's back in class. No one's like trying to break out a hot lunch situation.
A hot lunch situation, i.e. spontaneous musical number. We did practice some songs that I wrote on the L. We also practiced some stage combat that Ann Cusack came and taught us on the L. Don't do that. We were not thinking of the optics at the time that all of us white girls and our one black male friend who would like that we pretended that we didn't know and then came to attack me on the train, we could have gotten him killed. Yeah. A woman did stand up and she's like, stop it! Stop it! We're like, oh God, I'm so sorry. We're like hugging each other. And she's like, I swear to God, I have a daughter and I would hope that someone would do the same for her. And she points at my friend Nick and she's like, I was about to belt you. And we're like, oh no. We did a production of Cabaret everyone was pretty much naked, but they had to put bodysuits on underneath when the Catholic boys' school came to see it because the musical theater director, quote, did not want boys jerking off in his bathroom, end quote. And when was it Trish who got kicked out of the dance department? Was that her name? Lisa, sorry. And the dance teacher's like, you'll get over it. I was like, Jesus Christ. And to say to actors, as the acting teacher did, you really have to like yourself. Closest I've got is we would have guest artists come in. I got to meet Ben Vereen. And I had no idea who he was at the time.
Oh my God, I love Ben Vereen.
I love him so much. And I didn't even know who I was talking to. I just knew I was in the presence of greatness and then found out later. I was like, oh my God. So we have this guest and he says to us, he's like, listen, I'm successful. I'm very successful. Hold on. I'm more successful than any of you in this room will probably ever be And then it's like trailed off and like, and 90% of my work is rejection, is what he was trying to say. So that was Brian Dennehy, and I never liked him ever again after that.
I love Brian Dennehy.
No, he was crushing dreams, crushing them in a room full of 16-year-olds and 15-year-olds.
I think it's interesting that you bring up disappointment, because I think that's one of the big things that I feel like the story kind of ends on. Like, you know, the montage starts with like everyone being happy and like auditioning and like what a great moment. And then at the end of the 4 years, it's like basically like everyone's dreams were crushed. like Ralph bombs, Doris ends up breaking up with her boyfriend, Irene Cara has to suck her thumb. Like everything is just all about like sadness toward the end of it. And we talk about this a lot. It's like choosing a creative life is very difficult. And I think like choosing a creative life where you have educators who actually are like, you should stick to these dreams and it's going to be worth it at the end of it. Because I feel like, I know your experience, Adrienne, has been that that's not the case, right? Like you had a whole MFA issue about like, where like no one's encouraging you. I just don't really understand where are the mentors then? And like, why do we encourage people to keep doing this?
I don't know that we do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my experience. I don't know that we do encourage people to do this, other than it provides other people doing it jobs while they're also not making it. I mean, like, not to be a dick. I have a lot to say, and I won't say it all today.
That would be hard if you did. But I'd be sad for you.
Corrbette might not know. I do have a fraught experience with my MFA program, which was in writing, and I have a lot to say about like the abusive nature of that program. And then I also have a fraught relationship with my own creative work and my own creative dreams, you know, and like, I'm 43. I've spent a long time. I've got a novel on submission right now. Who knows if anything will happen with it? And, you know, the thinking I feel about these things now is like, if somebody was like, hey, I want to be a writer, like, what do you think? I'd be like, ooh, I don't know. Because there's, I spend a lot of time thinking like, I would have made a great lawyer. And imagine all this money I would have and general feeling of safety and success. And instead, I have a general feeling of failure and like constantly striving towards something that it's like unclear if I'll ever get it. And like, I don't know. It's hard because if you're a creative person, you just fucking are. Right. Right? Like, you just fucking are. And there's, in as much as we're like, there's room for everyone, that's not necessarily accurate. There is room for everyone. There's not room for everyone to be paid.
Exact. That's it right there.
Yes.
And I will say that my teachers were pretty like the speeches that each of these teachers in the movie gave at the beginning, all the shit you're going to have to do, right? When they got into like hairstyling and makeup for dancers or acting for dancers, you know, and they're not wrong.
Right.
And my teachers were working actors at that time, right? Like if they were gone and we had a sub, it's because they were doing something at Chicago Shakes, or they were doing something at the Goodman, or they were, or Next Theater or whatever. Like they started theater companies. Which is what that school taught me, is what I keep doing, which is you have to build the shit if you want the shit. And not everyone has not only that capability, but those resources, right? And I built with zero resources, right? We're dragging out lockers, the whole thing. Like, this is a hallway of a boys' school. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then I get to college. I create an improv company. I create a theater program in London. When I studied abroad, I found out they didn't fucking have one. And I'm like, well, no, my financial aid goes here. So this is what we're going to do. I ran a theater company for 12 years when I graduated. The problem with this is, and then I was a member of another one, and now I'm still making my own content. And we had a fundraiser to raise enough money to make Corey and Sarah Famous as a web series, as a SAG web series, right? And we did it in 2019. The thing is, you do all that, and then what?
Right.
Let's say you make all your own stuff. No one teaches you what to do with it once you do that, unless you're auditioning for, say, a company, and then you're in and you're paid forever. No, almost no one gets that.
Yeah.
So what do you do once you write the novel? How do you submit? How do you find? And no one's teaching that part. There was like one-day seminars of the business of acting or the business of on camera, and it's nonsense because I'm a creator who is literally constantly making my own shit. And by the time someone wants to go, you know what? I'd like to pay you for the thing you're already doing, which is all the dream was, right? You're like, yes, thank you. I'm so tired.
Yeah.
I don't know if after 48 years I can keep doing this.
Yeah.
But I'm going to, because you can't help that. Right. You're going to keep writing because you can't help doing that.
Yeah.
And you know, if your submission to take here, you're going to find somewhere else that it does.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I think we talk about this all the time, actually, is the challenge with like the DIY culture.
Yeah,
yes,
that you have to, like, as a creator, you have to create, right? Like, we can't. There's no us sitting down and like not doing it. And I also think, let's talk about some real things. It's like, not everyone's going to be, you know, a successful writer, and not everyone's going to be a successful actress in terms of like the way that we as America measure that, however we do, right? Because there's just like there's only so much opportunity, there's only so much time, and you know, I don't necessarily think that if you don't make like a major movie production, it makes you any kind of failure. Actually, I think you know, but it is limited to how many people could do that. If you were just acting for the one time that you're going to make a movie, you would never act, right? Like, you have to figure out places you can practice the craft. And I think where we end up kind of frustrated is that people are always like, everyone's voices are so important. And then you go out and you make a thing, and then no one gives a shit about your voice.
Well, nobody sees it because of algorithms or because of whatever. I mean, we had to fundraise from our friends to like make this show. And it was, that fundraiser to me is one of our biggest successes as like in the last like whatever years of creative life. Like, I'm like, oh wow, people believe in us. You know, it's not just the money, but the fact that people would show up for us, and like it rejuvenates you, right? But Elizabeth and I talk about this all the time. Like, I love, like, listen, I haven't seen you on TikTok because I don't TikTok. I'd love to see you, but the thing I always think about,
it's on Instagram.
Yeah. Oh, good, because that's where I watch my TikToks. But like, I always think like the amount of time and effort that people are putting into these videos is enormous. It's enormous, you know? And like, you know, and Elizabeth will be like, well, you get this many followers, you get paid and whatever. I'm like, yeah, but the thing that we're not talking about, I think overall for creative people, is that like, if there's a triangle, right, you know, everybody's at the bottom, but once you get up to this like teeny tiny part at the top of the triangle, really it's just this small amount of people who are getting paid to like do like a livable amount of money to do all the things they want to do, you know?
Yeah. So,
and that's all sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you about your, because this, what Adrian's saying is interesting to me. And I'm curious, like, in terms of like how much time and effort you put into your web series versus how much you physically got paid for it. Or even like, did you, right? Like,
give us the log line.
Kind of like,
tell us the log line and the name so people can watch it, and then answer Elizabeth's question.
Yeah, and then just kind of give us an idea of like what that, how many hours went into that versus you know.
So many. I should have had the log line ready to go. But Corey and Sarah Famous is so Sarah Savini and I became writing partners. Early 2000s, let's go with that, instead of me trying to put a year on it. And we wrote 5 plays together. All of them were produced, and we really have this natural banter with each other.
Love it.
And we, it's 2 middle-aged bi-Jewish women just having a great bing, bang, boom
I was
kind
like,
of,
we don't
right?
get that.
Yeah. No, you guys don't understand that at all. No. And asking money for your friends. No similarity whatsoever. Nope. And we had written this pilot about, because Sarah is the person who went to LA and had a pilot, and the pilot didn't get picked up. She's the guy in the diner, but she's not waiting tables. She's actually still working a fuck ton and coaching and doing all this stuff. And I always joke that she was, you know, more famous. She had the professional down more than me. Mm-hmm. And I in real life quit my day job to finally pursue this, and it was a huge thing. And so we just did this little pilot about that. And it was fun. And Kyle Hammond was our director and camera guy. And we guerrilla shot downtown in Chicago, and it was great. But we watched the pilot and we're like, it's not quite what we want to tell. That doesn't seem right. That doesn't highlight our friendship enough. And that is what Corey and Sarah Famous then went to do. We went to celebrate the friendship, the joy of that, right? Yeah. Everything is more joyful when you're sharing it and bouncing ideas with your friend. And also to celebrate the Chicago community of artists that all come together and do this. And we had a series called Get in the Door. that was really just me filming us talking in the car, and then I go and edit it, and I just put the camera on her and we just talk about random shit. And she was like, that's the series. The things that happened to us that we talked about in the car, that's the series. And she's right. So we wound up, there was a day where she's talking to me and the wire of her bra came out. So, the pilot episode is us going to a store called literally Bras Galore. And if you don't know,
I
Galore.
love Bras
Yes.
Galore. I also watched that episode.
Yes, it's the pilot episode called The Dominant Boob, and our talking boobs at one point, because we had this amazing illustrator, Ginger Seehafer, who started drawing Sarah and I from Get in the Car, and we brought her on for animations for that. So we actually have talking boobs. One of them is Samantha Irby, and the other is the lovely and recently departed Annie Wershing. So I was like, she'll be the dominant boob forever in our hearts, because she and I went to school together. And we also have a talking chest of Behzad Dabu. And so we just started to pull all of the people that we know and love, right? And we would gather in, Chicago bars and start to film these stories about Chicago life as artists, not just the hustle culture, but how we gather and support each other. How we make light of not everyone's going to be doing this. So I joked after the shoot was over that I gave birth, and this was the hardest thing I had ever done. Mm-hmm. We were funded. We had 4 different directors, 6 episodes. Is that right? Yep. 4 different directors, 6 episodes, huge cast, and everybody got paid, and not a lot. It was new media contract, so not everyone's getting paid. And then the thing that, what we didn't count on, right? So we did this whole thing in a matter of 2 weeks. We shot it in 2 weeks, including one overnight shoot, because we were at Harvest Time in a grocery store, actually singing Fame, having Fame. Yep. And yeah. And it was before Irene Cara died. We have a line. We're like, where is Irene Cara now? I don't know, but she's not here. So we finish all of that. We feel great. We didn't count on how much how much time post-production was going to take, how much money it was going to take. And then a pandemic hit. Right. And the thing wound up being released last year. Mm-hmm. And again, that money, we raised about $25,000 to shoot a SAG mini web series, so that everyone got paid, including crew. Yeah. We have contracts written up, and we're doing this. We have no fucking idea what we're doing, but we're doing it.
Right.
And we're exhausted afterward. We've made barely any money, and we submitted it to some festivals, and we won some awards. And honestly, now 2023, we're sitting here well, now what do we do?
Yeah.
We got this thing. It's really good. What do we?
Let me ask you a question. Did you have an end goal or a hope that you were hoping it was going to do for you? And are you struggling now with that goal or that hope?
I think we always said that if nothing else, it was going to be a calling card for what we could do, from Kyle as a camera and director and boots on the ground, and then for Sarah and I as both actors and writers. And I think it still is that, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have any? Yes. Do you have any examples of yes?
Yeah.
So it's great to have those. As far as, was anyone gonna, I don't know, buy it and maybe help us make it? That would have been nice, but we haven't gotten into those rooms because we haven't pitched in that way. Because you have this product that you literally labored, and you're like, I birthed this thing. What do I do with this thing? Because that is the big mystery, right? I could enter it in festivals forever if I had unlimited festival funds.
Right.
And then what? I'm just on festivals forever? No one talks about what's next after, great, we won all these awards.
Yeah, I think that's the thing I had talked about even with this movie of Fame. It's the idea of what is the measure of success to something, right? Honestly, what you did is impressive. I mean,
of course.
We couldn't ask for even $2,500. I can't imagine asking for so much money. So that's that's so brave and forward, and I think that's amazing. So being able to accomplish that, and then getting this crew together and writing the whole thing, and then putting it all together, and then filming it, and all that to me feels like a very big success. And I feel like as artists, it never feels like enough, though, right?
No.
now that you have it, you've you've gotten some awards. That's not going to be enough. Like it's like,
No.
let's go to the next level. Let's go to the next level. I don't know what makes something like successful. I noticed, Adrian, that you put up a meme in your story for Instagram where Jim Carrey is basically like, I wish everyone could get as successful as I am, so that they realize that it's really not everything. And I mean, Adrian, that's a big one for you.
I felt that Jim Carrey was personally attacking all the Enneagram 3s of the world with that sentiment. It hurt my feelings. It upset me. Elizabeth and I
Jim
fight
Carrey
about.
and I are now officially fighting.
Yeah, Elizabeth and I fight about this exact thing all the time.
I don't know if we
Because
fight about it. We just have different levels of it.
and the thing is that I don't think that she is wrong. Oh, so a dynamic of our relationship that I don't know if we've actually ever really discussed here is that, like, I'm very goal oriented, success oriented, and like focused on like X, Y, and Z, the things that I want, right? And Elizabeth, how would you describe yourself in relation to that?
I would say that I'm just always surprised I accomplish anything.
Right.
I get that too.
Right. Like anytime I do something and I finish the project and I get to the point where I'm like really proud of it, I'm like, wow, Elizabeth, that was great.
Right. And she also sometimes is like,
Awesome.
I don't even want to do X, Y, or Z.
I'm afraid of rejection to the point where that it is like, as somebody who now realizes that I want to be a creative person living a creative life, that I am too afraid to like put myself out there in a way where people can tell me that I can't do that.
Right. And so in our relationship, I find this dynamic to be very helpful in a lot of ways because, like, I push her forward. I try to make you more goal oriented or be like, Elizabeth, you can do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And then she's like, Adrian, shut the fuck up. You've already done X, Y, and Z. Like, you need to like embrace it. But this like never enough thing I sort of struggle with because I'm like, I don't know that that's how I feel or that that's true. I mean, like, if my lifelong dream is to publish a book, right? And I've gotten this far, it's taken me this fucking long and it doesn't happen. Like, I do feel that if I publish that book, yeah, I'd probably want to write another, but like I also feel like that might be enough. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel that I need to be Stephen King, you know, or Taylor Jenkins Reid. Like I don't feel that I need to be Elizabeth Gilbert with a huge fucking platform and like all of these things. So I do feel that there is a spot where it feels like I've done the fucking thing, you know?
What happens if you get the book published?
Yeah. And people
And
hate
let's
it. Corrbette.
Let's say, or not a lot of people read it.
Right. And that's totally.
Are you going to be okay with that?
I'm not going to love it. No, I'm not going to love it. But I mean,
I'll read it.
Thank you.
I'm gonna read
Thank you. I do think that like we face this all the time, not to be like joking, but like, you know, our podcast, you know, sometimes we get like 600 listeners. I'm like, who are these fucking people? I love you. Like, it's so exciting, you know, but like, I am definitely a person who's like, well, I'm writing the Substack and I seem to have a dedicated fan base of about 189 people, you know, but where are the fucking 10,000 people that should be following me? So yes, I have to like reframe all the time for myself. But I think it's just, I struggle with like, I want to be paid at this point. Like I spent a long time writing this fucking book and I want to be paid for the work that I did, you know, or like even with our podcast, like we've self-funded it for 2 years. Now we're asking our friends to fund it.
Listen, we used to say the Chicago Storefront Theater was passing the same $20 back and forth.
Exactly.
Right? So, I mean, it's we get it, right?
Yeah.
The people who cannot afford to are the ones who are going to support you.
Yeah.
It's just, but, you know, when I left my day job, right? So I worked in law firms for like 18 years. I was an intellectual property specialist. I even managed to get myself a title. And I was in that time running a theater company, auditioning, you know, getting started like with TV roles and all that. Like I was doing all of that at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I was sobbing every morning before work. It just got to the point that it was just too much. And my husband was like, okay, it's your turn. You got to go. And I was like, no, I can't. We don't have any backup. And he's like, no, we don't, but we're going to figure this out. It's your turn. And what he asked of me, he's like, all I ask is that you enjoy the the journey of this, because there is always going to be another fucking peak of another fucking mountain that you have not gotten to yet. And you will want to get there. And if you don't enjoy what you have in that moment, you've lost the entire point.
Yeah.
Right. So like in the middle of the two of you is where the truth is.
Yes. And I really like your husband a lot in this story. I mean, this is great.
Really
but the thing that I really relate to about how you started this is like, there's a finite amount of energy, and that's really what the point is, right? Like, you can work full time, you can raise your children, you can try to be an artist, like you can try to be a friend, you can make the dinner and do the laundry, but there is a finite amount of energy, right? And so if you're trying to do all of those things all the time, which is how I've spent the last 14 years trying to do all those things at once, at some point, if something doesn't hit, something doesn't work out, like it gets exhausting. And you're just like, here I am, like now I'm facing down my kid's going to need college tuition in 4 years, right? So it's like, I got to do something else, or like the energy, like you just know you only have so much to give. And I think the older you get, the more hits you take, the more you're like, well, it's harder for me to be like, you know what, everyone should try to be a writer. You should 100% express yourself. You should fucking get a Substack right now. You should get a TikTok. You should get a following. You should get a platform. You should do all the fucking things. It's going to be so great and it's going to work out.
It's totally going to work out for you.
Yeah. I have, I'm going to have to, you gals, I really feel like we're getting to the meat of this conversation and I'm going to have to cut us off.
You're wrapping it up?
We have to. It's time.
Oh, shit. More artists.
Because I have so many questions about like the creative, like this whole creative process. And I love that we're all talking about this. And it helps to have like someone like Corrbette outside of our relationship to really kind of
tell us that the truth is in the middle.
But to give us like a different perspective and like somebody who's like has like a history of doing the same things, like just really working hard to do things. Yeah. So we'll have to have you go back at some point.
Okay, I would love to.
And then we can talk about it a little deeper. But usually we like to end on our final thoughts. And we usually like say, hey, if you like this movie, then you should probably see this movie. Yeah. But today I have a different question.
Oh no, I made a list.
Well, you can work it into your answer because you're very smart like that.
Okay.
Nice.
What piece of advice would you guys give to keep people encouraged in the world of the creative arts, especially in a place like Chicago where like in the public schools it's being threatened so far as whether or not they're even offering the programming because there's just like not enough funding. So like what would you say to someone who's like, I want to be a creative person?
I'm gonna let Corrbette take that.
The derision with which you just said that was like, you know what? I have nothing uplifting for you. What I would tell them is that it's necessary. To be a creative person is not just a gift, but it is a mission. Like, be that person. Also, understand what your expectations are. You will not be necessarily rewarded for being that person, but it will teach you so much about yourself, about the world around you, about empathy. What it taught me is if I don't have something, asking for it isn't going to hurt me because I already don't have it. What are you going to tell me? No? Well, I don't have it anyway. So I may as well ask. And I got that from arts training that had nothing, right? Like they were building things out of nothing. And I'm happy to continue to do that. I wish I didn't have to, but I will. And I think that any creative person has that spirit about them. And it doesn't matter if everyone reads it, if no one reads it, you have to have that part of yourself kept alive, or what the fuck is the point?
Oh, I love that. Mm-hmm. You have to keep that part of yourself alive, or what the fuck is the point? Mm-hmm. Yes, I totally agree. I agree 100%. As somebody who has spent most of my life being scared of being creative.
Yeah.
Adrienne, what would be your advice?
I mean, I just want to set the stage that like right now, I sort of feel like Rocky, like before he gets to have like a championship fight, right? Like I'm just like on the ground. I feel like I've been beat up. I'm bleeding. So it's like, that's like the vibe that I'm coming from. But at the same time, there's this other part of me that watches this movie and I'm like, fuck yeah, man, this is all that there is. Yep. You know, it's the fucking arts and we're expressing ourselves and it's humanity and we're learning. Like that's like my core self is that. So I don't have any advice, though I would say two things. I am going to make my recommendations.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, if people haven't read Corrbette, have you read Trust Exercise?
No.
Okay, write it down right now. It's about like a performing arts high school. It's a fucking amazing book that I recommend to everyone. And I also really enjoy Whiplash, the movie, which is about a jazz drummer, and it really feels parallel to my MFA experience, where you just get abused the whole time. But there's also a very beautiful moment of catharsis at the end that I'm hopeful for.
Oh, I love that.
Nice.
I will watch that. I haven't seen that. All right, folks.
Wait. What's your advice?
I think
wait a minute.
mine is probably pretty short. It's like, just enjoy what you're doing. You know, like creating is something that I actually really enjoy the work for, even if it's hard. Even like when I'm struggling to like formulate a thought, to write a recap or whatever. I find that when you are pushing yourself in that way, you'd be surprised at what you can do. And I think that's fucking rad.
Yeah.
It's a fucking rad thing to do.
Yeah.
You guys, thanks so much.
Yeah, I enjoyed this.
Thanks so much.
You.
I'm sorry, Christine, if we ran a little long today, but good. Okay, great.
Christine gave a thumbs up. She's also a woman of the arts.
I could just feel like we were going to get really emotional, the three of us. I was like,
I'm glad I
was, like,
didn't
so
cry.
great.
Thanks for not making me cry.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for thanks for listening to Don't Ruin This For Me. Special thanks to the Lincoln Lodge and our producer Christine Ferreira and our graphic designer Jessica Savage.
Oh my God. I think everyone is probably looking for more of us after listening to this episode. And they definitely want to check out our Substack newsletters. Mine's called Where the Fuck's My Happy Ending? And Elizabeth's is called Mixed Race Tape.
Waka waka waka.
Wow. And you can follow the pod on Instagram at Don't Ruin This Pod.
And if you wanted to find more Corrbette, where can we find more Corrbette?
You can find me on all socials as Corrbette. You can also go to CorrieandSarahAreFamous.com. CorriSara, because we're obnoxious, but that's also how our names are spelled. You can find us on YouTube. You can find me, like I said, CorrBette on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook. It's all the same.
I love it.
I'm so excited. Next week, we guys, words hard to say. Yes. Come back next week and we'll check out our high school life on the West Coast when we discuss what? Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
I have seen this movie about 7,000 fucking times.
Really? I don't think I've seen it twice.
This is 100% my pick, and I am thrilled to. Who's our guest?
It's supposed to be Justin Kaufman.
Oh.
So we'll see.
A white man on the pod?
We allow one per season. One per season. Yes.
All right. Well,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what?
Allow it.
Let's everybody come together to support middle-aged women's voices by rating and reviewing Don't Ruin This For Me on your favorite podcast app.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Yay.
Thanks, everyone.